All right, let's talk about adulthood. We tend to think of it as just one long, continuous stretch of time, don't we? But what if I told you it actually has its own map? A kind of roadmap with really clear stages, challenges, and even destinations. Well, in this explainer, we're going to unfold that exact map.
I'm sure you have. We've all heard that phrase, act your age. But what does that even mean? Well, it points to this unspoken idea that society expects us to act a certain way at different points in our lives. And that's really our first clue that adulthood isn't just one big thing, it's a journey.
You see, developmental psychologists have actually charted this journey. They've broken it down into 3 core phases. And each one brings its own unique physical changes, its own psychological challenges, and its own societal pressures. Understanding this map isn't just some academic exercise. It's kind of like getting a guide to your own life.
So here's our roadmap. Pretty simple, right? Early adulthood, that's our 20s and 30s. Then we hit middle adulthood through our 40s and 50s. And finally, late adulthood from our 60s and beyond. We're going to walk through each one step by step. So let's start at the beginning.
Okay, welcome to early adulthood. Think of this as the building period. This is when you're laying down the foundation for pretty much the rest of your life. It's a time that's really defined by peak performance and this intense drive for independence. Physically, this is your prime. I mean, your body has reached its full height, your strength is still increasing, your coordination and your senses, they're the sharpest they're ever going to be. It's this time of feeling really robust and energetic. It's basically the biological peak of your life.
But psychologically, this era is defined by a core challenge, one that the famous psychologist Erik Erikson pointed out. It's intimacy versus isolation. The big question here is, can you form deep, meaningful, and committed relationships? If you succeed, you develop what he called the virtue of intimacy. But if you fail, well, that can lead to a really profound sense of loneliness and isolation.
And while all that's going on inside, you've also got society's to-do list to deal with. Another theorist, Robert Havikhurst, called these developmental tasks. And as you can see, this list probably looks pretty familiar. Find a partner, start a career, maybe start a family, build a social circle. These are all those external pressures that really define this phase of just establishing your place in the world.
So next up, we arrive at middle adulthood. Now, if early adulthood was all about building that foundation, this stage is kind of like standing at a crossroads. You're looking back at everything you've built, and you're trying to decide where to go from here.
And this, of course, brings us to the famous, and let's be honest, often misunderstood, midlife crisis. It's not just about buying a sports car. Psychologists actually see it as a totally normal or normative period of reevaluation. You start asking those huge questions. What have I really achieved? Was it all worth it? Where am I even heading now? It's a really crucial time for reflection. Erikson's core conflict for this stage shifts. It moves away from personal relationships and toward your broader legacy. He called it generativity versus stagnation. Generativity is that drive to contribute something meaningful to the next generation, through raising kids, mentoring people, or creating work that will last. The alternative is stagnation, just feeling stuck, self-absorbed, and like you have little to offer the world.
And society's checklist? Yeah, that evolves too. The focus totally shifts. Now it's about guiding your teenage kids, taking on bigger responsibilities in the community, trying to maintain your career, and, this is a big one, adjusting to the first real signs of physical aging.
And finally, we enter the third act of our journey, late adulthood. Now, this isn't an ending. It's a whole new chapter, one that's focused on reflection, on finding meaning in the life you've lived, and, hopefully, cultivating a really unique kind of wisdom.
This stage is really defined by having to adjust to some pretty fundamental life changes. These often include things like retirement and the reduced income that comes with it, a noticeable decline in physical strength, and for many people, the really profound challenge of adjusting to life after a partner has passed away.
Erikson's final life crisis is maybe the most profound of them all. Ego integrity versus despair. It's the ultimate life review. Can you look back and see a life that was meaningful and whole, a life you can accept? That's integrity. The opposite is despair, a feeling of regret, bitterness, and the sense that it's just too late to change things.
Havikhurst's final tasks really reflect these exact challenges. They're less about building something new and much more about adapting, managing your health, learning to live on a new budget, coping with loss, and, just as importantly, finding a community and a real connection with people in your own age group.
So, if you successfully navigate this whole roadmap, it leads to one final crucial question. What does it actually mean to age well? And a huge part of the answer involves confronting one of life's greatest certainties, our own mortality.
The psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was a real pioneer in the study of death and dying, offers this really powerful way of reframing it. She saw the end of life not as a failure, but as the final stage of growth. This perspective completely shifts our focus to the psychological journey of facing our own end.
And Kubler-Ross gave us a framework for this journey with her famous 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, acceptance. Now, it's not always a straight line, but it does map out the emotional process of coming to terms at the end, and working through this is a huge part of achieving what Erikson called that final stage, a sense of integrity.
And that brings it all back to you. We've just walked through the entire roadmap of adulthood. The final question, the one Erikson really leaves us with, is for you to answer. Looking at your own journey, whether you're just starting out or you're well on your way, what are the choices, the contributions, and the relationships that will allow you to one day look back with a real sense of fulfillment and integrity?